Hi, my name's Alice and today is Palm Sunday, and as you can see I'm wearing my very special Palm Sunday dress for the occasion. I wanted to talk to you today about a number of things I've been thinking about this week. I've tried to write them, but somehow I can't, so I'm going to try and record it this way. I just wanted to start by thinking about our son Francis. Francis is a young man, he's 22, he lives about 15 minutes away from us. He has strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes, an infectious smile and a cheeky grin. And those who get to know him can't help but fall in love with him. Francis also has cerebral palsy, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, severe autism and learning disabilities, and epilepsy. So he is frail and vulnerable, like many of his friends. Francis is a part of Light Church. Light stands for Living in God's Heart Together, and we gather once a month in Chippenham, a group of people with learning disabilities and other disabilities and challenge in their lives. It's always chaotic, it's always full of love. And however low I might be feeling when I go, however disorganised it might be, can't help but come away feeling blessed. There are many people like Francis around. And I was reminded of him when we sang, I've been doing the Great British Home Chorus with Gareth Malone, and last week we sang through You Are My Sunshine. And I had been reflecting on a number of things that day, and as we sang, I started crying and realised how much I missed Francis, how I missed the sunshine he brings into our lives. How many people like him bring sunshine into our lives. And then I was thinking about Palm Sunday and thinking that on that Palm Sunday, the sun was shining. Everybody was happy, they were celebrating, they were wearing branches. It was a beautiful day. But 5 days later, those who had celebrated Jesus coming into Jerusalem had turned their backs on him and condemned him to death. And I wonder sometimes if that's what's happening in our society at the moment. There's been a lot of talk this week around who would be prioritised for ventilators when there aren't enough to go around. A colleague sent me an article from a newspaper in America saying the state of Alabama had said that those who were severely disabled, particularly those with profound learning disabilities, would not be given ventilators. And our own politicians have been questioned repeatedly on this. And the answers have felt very dubious at times. It's at times like this we think about who we value. And the danger is we see people as the use they provide to our society. Traditionally, those who have the money, those who have the power, are those who run the banks, those who deal in money, those who run big business. And the people at the bottom of the pile are the shopkeepers, the carers, the nurses, and those who are too disabled to work. Some of that has turned around right now. We are celebrating our nurses and our carers and our doctors and our shopkeepers and our stealth packers and our farmers. But we are not celebrating those at the bottom of the pile in the same way. And I think we have a challenge in our society. Do we carry on as we are? Or do we change? Who is important to us? The Bible says we are all made in God's image. Even before we were born, God knew us in our mother's wombs and knit us together. We are perfectly and wonderfully made. If each of us, if each human is perfectly and wonderfully made, made in the image of God. What right do any of us have to say one person is more important than the next? What right does anyone have to say that we will prioritise the healthy and the strong over the vulnerable and the weak? And the danger is, like the crowds on Palm Sunday, that we turn our backs and throw away what is good because we want to hold on to something for ourselves. This week's morning prayer had some responses from 1 Corinthians, and I looked them up and went on to the following verses, and it says, God's weakness is stronger than human strength, and God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. Are we to be shamed by how we treat the weak? Or, like God does, are we prepared to be weak and stand with the weak, and in that weakness become strong? Our society, our world has big choices to make at the moment. Choices about how we will be now and how we will be when we come out of this time. What is important to us? Psychotherapists and wisdom traditions talk about us all going through little deaths in our lives, that through suffering we grow. One of my favourite stories was the Narnia story of Edwin, who falls asleep on the pile of dragon's gold and turns into a dragon. And eventually he wants to become a boy again. And for that to happen, Aslan, the God Jesus figure, needs to peel away his layers of skin. And as each is peeled, it becomes more painful. But eventually the true child is returned to the story. That, for us, is what happens in our lives, that when we struggle, when we suffer, when we are in crisis and are broken, we always have a choice to let that suffering transform us, to become wiser people, or to just slide back to how we were before. I think in this crisis we have a choice as a society. Do we stay? Do we slip back to how we were? Or do we allow the changes that are happening to transform us for the good, for the better, for the future? It is a choice we each have to make, and we have to start that choice now by saying who and what is important. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. Do we stand with the weak and make ourselves vulnerable too? Or do we want to be strong and turn our back on the vulnerable?